All right, let's get you up and running with the Cadwell Wedge system. If you're new to the Wedge and the Sierra XP software, this explainer is for you. We're going to walk through everything you need to know from plugging it in to printing out your very first patient report. Let's dive in. So here's the game plan. We've got 6 key steps. We'll start with getting the hardware all set up, then pop in our first patient and get comfortable with the base unit. After that, we'll run through a nerve study and an EMG. And finally, we'll wrap it all up by showing you how to review everything and generate that final report. First things first, let's get the hardware connected. You know, a successful test really does start with a solid connection. It's super important to get everything plugged in right and, more importantly, to power it on in the correct order. This is going to save you a lot of headaches. Okay, this part is absolutely critical, so listen up. There are 3 steps, and you have to do them in this order. 1. Make sure that PCMCIA Ethernet card is pushed all the way into the laptop, nice and firm. 2. Connect the cable from that card securely to the base unit. And 3, this is the big one, always turn the base unit on first and then turn on the laptop. If you do it the other way around, they won't talk to each other properly. Okay, hardware is on and communicating. Beautiful. Now let's move over to the software side of things and get our first patient logged into the system. So on your desktop, you're just going to find that Sierra XP icon and give it a double click. It'll take you straight to the patient info screen. All you have to do is type in a last name and a first name. The system is smart enough to generate a unique ID number all by itself, which is pretty handy. Once their name is in, just click Start Test. Simple as that. All right, let's talk about the base unit. This is basically your command center for running tests. We're going to take a quick look at how all those physical buttons and knobs you see on the box connect directly to what you're seeing on the screen. This is one of my favorite things about the system because it's so intuitive. See those 4 boxes down in the bottom left of the screen? Those line up perfectly with the F1 through F4 function keys on your base unit. And the 4 circles on the bottom right? Yep, you guessed it. Those correspond to the 4 physical knobs. It's a really clean, simple one-to-one mapping. Now, the logic for using those knobs is something you'll want to commit to memory. It's super simple. You turn the knob to select something or adjust a value, and you press the knob to confirm it or to modify what that knob does. So, for example, you might turn a knob to change the gain. Then you'd press that same knob, and now turning it will adjust the sweep. Turn to select, press to modify. You'll be flying through the menus once you get the hang of it. Okay, let's put this all into practice and run our first test. We'll start with a nerve conduction velocity study, or NCV. We're basically just going to see how fast an electrical signal can zip through a nerve. The workflow for an NCV is a pretty simple loop. First, you'll select the test. You can use the dedicated test key or just turn knob 1. Next, you'll use that same knob to scroll down the list of nerves and press it to pick the one you want. When you stimulate, you'll see that response pop up as a live trace in the top half of the screen. Once you see a good one, you just hit the store key and bam, it gets saved down to the bottom grid. Now, the system does a pretty good job of placing the measurement cursors automatically, but it's not always perfect. It happens. So what do you do when you need to jump in and manually adjust those latency cursors? You've got 2 easy ways to handle this. If the trace is still live and active up in that top grid, just use knob 2 to move the onset and peak cursors around. Super easy. If the trace is already stored down in the bottom grid, you just have to press the cursor key on the base unit first. That unlocks it for editing. Then you can use knob 1 to select and move the cursors exactly where they need to be. All right, let's switch gears and talk about EMG, or electromyography. The workflow here is a little different. Instead of capturing a single response, we're going to be watching a live stream of muscle activity, and then we'll freeze it to capture and score interesting moments. So this is your 6-step process for EMG. First, you hit Run Stop to freeze the live data. Second, you'll turn knob 1 to scroll back through the last few seconds to find the exact piece of activity you want to save. Third, use knob 2 to tell the system which muscle you're testing. Fourth, hit Store. Fifth, and this is a neat shortcut, press knob 2 again to add that muscle to your score table. And finally, step 6, use knob 3 to move around in that table and change any of the scores you need to. Okay, the hard part's over. You've run all your tests, you've collected all the data. Now for the final phase, reviewing everything to make sure it's perfect, and then creating a nice professional report. You need to remember this one key F4. The F4 key is your best friend. At any point, literally any time during a test, you can hit F4 and it will bring up what's called the tab data view. Think of it as your master control panel for reviewing everything you've done. So inside this view, you'll see a list, or a tree,
on the left of every test you've performed. You can click on a single nerve to see all the details, or you can click on a whole category, like all motor, to get a high-level summary table. It's super useful. Now, one key thing, if you see a mistake, you can't fix it here. You have to select that test and then click the Open Test button to go back and make your edits.
Once you've reviewed everything and you're happy with all the data, generating the report is as easy as pushing a button. Seriously, just press one of the dedicated report buttons on the base unit. A preview of the final document will pop up. You can even make some last-minute edits right on that screen, and when you're ready, just hit print. And when you're all done with one patient and ready for the next, just head up to the File menu and choose New Patient. And you don't have to worry about manually saving anything. The second you start a new patient, all the work from your last one is automatically saved. It's a great feature. And there you have it. That's the entire workflow, from plugging in the cords all the way to printing a finished report.